Today we're going to make a coffee table with concrete legs. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make it with Squarespace. We started by cutting up some pieces of plywood and then drew the design for the legs on them. We clamped the pieces together 2 at a time and then started to cut out the shape. We used a circular saw for the straight lines and a jigsaw for the curved inside lines. We then sealed the plywood with 2 coats of Minwax polyacrylic. For the edges of the mold, we're going to use vinyl baseboard trim. It cuts nice and easy, and we can staple it right to the plywood. We also use some hot glue as well. We sealed the inside seams of the mold with some silicone caulk. We stapled and glued on the other piece of plywood and then sealed that side as well. To attach the concrete legs to the tabletop, we're going to use L brackets, and we're going to set these into the concrete. So we used a palm router to notch some little recesses that will allow the L brackets to sit flush. We put some nuts and bolts on the side of the L brackets that's going to go into the concrete, and then hot glued them into place. We mixed up a bag of Quikrete 5000 concrete mix and started to fill the molds. Now we made sure to push the concrete down into the bottoms of the mold, and we used a orbital sander without a sanding pad to vibrate it and to try to remove as many of the air bubbles as possible. At 5000 psi, Quikrete 5000 is a lot stronger than typical concrete that's used in most residential construction. It also has a nice gray color. Hi, Ben here. I'm going to tell you about Squarespace, the sponsor for this video. Create a beautiful website with Squarespace's all-in-one platform. There's nothing to upgrade, download, or patch ever. My favorite thing about Squarespace is that they have really well-designed templates. Templates give you a head start on creating your own website because you already have the structure. You just need to plug in your content similarly to how you would upload content to social media, and there you have a super professional, slick-looking website. We use Squarespace to create the website for my podcast, The Modern Maker Podcast. Did you guys know I have a podcast? If not, go listen to it. We chose Squarespace because it's easy to use, which is important for getting started, but it's also very powerful. We have aspirations of selling products online, and we want to make sure that we have a website that we can add e-commerce functionality to. So basically we can quickly and efficiently create a powerful online store. So go to squarespace.com/homemade and use the offer code HOMEMADE to get 10% off your first purchase of a domain or website. All right, back to the project. After letting the concrete cure for 48 hours, we just peeled away the vinyl trim and removed the molds. We had some pretty warped walnut boards that we had salvaged from a tree that fell down in my parents' yard. We clamped down the straight edge and then used a circular saw to trim them. There was a lot of rough bark on these boards, so we just got rid of that using a hammer and chisel. We ran them through a thickness planer to flatten them out, and then clamped them together so we could mark the locations for biscuits. We used a biscuit joiner to cut slots and then glued the boards together. We did the initial sanding with a belt sander. An angle grinder with a flap disc was handy for smoothing down the edges before finishing them with an orbital sander. Typically for live edge tabletops I would just cut them straight across, but my brother Nate wanted to try something different, so he used a jigsaw to create a slight radius on the ends. We then sanded the tabletop to 220 grit, and then sealed it with Minwax wipe-on poly. Now the concrete had some black marks on it that came off from the vinyl trim board, so we just used some acetone on rags to wipe that right off. We laid down a thick bead of silicone on top of the concrete. This will keep the wood and concrete from grinding together, but it will still be easy to remove the wood top if we ever need to move it. We then placed the tabletop and screwed it on from the underside. To be honest, this isn't my favorite design, but I really like the technique of making the concrete legs. This technique could be used to make all sorts of different shapes, and concrete is a really affordable DIY material. For additional info and other DIY projects, check out our website, and be sure to follow us on Instagram if you want to see what we're working on next. If you want to learn more about the concrete products that I use, go to quikrete.com. Have a look at some of our other videos, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks. Bye.